America was built on slavery, and it's never moved away from that model. Right now in the United States, there are about 800,000 prisoners who do forced labor. And if they're paid at all, they're paid as little as $1 for an 8-hour shift. They make products for McDonald's, Wendy's, Walmart, Starbucks, as well as furniture for office buildings and military uniforms, all kinds of things. And these prisons make billions of dollars with these contracts. And that makes it a huge incentive to keep American prisons full. And that's why we had things like the war on drugs, which was actually just an excuse to fill prisons with laborers. Immigrants in ICE detention centers also do labor. They have a voluntary work program, but it's not that voluntary. You still only make $1 a day, but then they charge you like $11 for a tube of toothpaste. So since the detention centers don't supply them with basic things that they need, and that they have to buy them from the detention center, they don't really have to pay them that $1. But those detention centers haven't become a big industry like American prisons have. Part of that is just a lack of demand for detention centers. Those detention centers just don't have a big enough labor force. But it feels like we could be in the beginning of building a new industry. There's now been not one, but 2 planes of immigrants that have been rejected by the other countries that they're being deported to. So that means that they'll come back to the United States and they'll go into those detention centers. The goal was never to deport them. The goal was to fill detention centers so much that they need to build more detention centers. And then if they build more detention centers, then they need more immigrants to fill them with. This system is really lucrative for people who own these private prisons and own these private detention centers, but it's very expensive for us, taxpayers. One prisoner costs taxpayers between $15,000 and $70,000 a year, which means it costs more to house a prisoner than I get paid. My labor costs less than theirs, but the prison industry doesn't care because they don't pay that cost. We do. But it also makes it so that small companies and private companies can't compete with prison labor. If I had a clothing company and I wanted to make uniforms for McDonald's, I could not get that contract because I cannot make the clothes that cheap. Because I can't use forced unpaid labor, and even if I could, I wouldn't do that. I don't think you would either, but you pay for it anyway. And ultimately, that means that your local burger place cannot compete with McDonald's price-wise. So watch what happens over the next few months. We were promised all of these mass deportations. Are they actually going to be deported, or are we going to have filled detention centers? And keep in mind that currently when ICE arrests an immigrant who is actually in the United States legally, they end up spending more time in a detention center than someone who is here illegally. So just because someone is in a detention center, that doesn't mean they didn't immigrate legally. And we'll know that this is what is happening when they start building new detention centers and when these detention centers start taking contracts for labor.